come easily doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Had a good thing going lately. I know it might not have always been a fairy tale, but you know and I know that that ain't real. That the truth over the story. You might have tried my patience lately, but I'm not about to let us fail. Yeah, I'll be the wind picking up your sail. If you do something for me, don't you tell me that it wasn't meant to be. Call it quits, call it destiny. Just because it won't come easily doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Coming and going, inside out and back to front, all tangled and messy, but that's how we've been and will always will be. That's alright with me, but just don't tell me that it wasn't meant to be. Call it quits, call it destiny. Just because it won't come easily doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Try, try. Just because it won't come easily doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Try, try. Just because it won't come easily doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Just because it won't come easily doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Thank you. This next song I'm going to do is one that I wrote myself. It's released on Spotify. If you just want to look it up, it's called Handleless. Appreciate all the support. So I'll play a version of that for you here now. All this tension, where has the time gone? Looking back now, I had nowhere to run. I've seen so many things that I don't understand. Still get down when I sing, and it's getting so bad, and I can't just reject this situation. It's time to accept my misinterpretation of how to handle this. But I can't stay here. Where else can I go? It's close but not fear. guess I'll wing it on my own. Everyone around me is twisting and turning. They only get to see a little bit, but my heart is burning. And all I'm being told is what I should do. But if it was you and not me, then you'd see it too. That I can't just reject this situation. It's time to accept my misinterpretation of how to handle this. But I can't stay here. Where else can I go? It's close but not fear. I guess I'll wing it on my own. It's not just a game. This is my notation. Don't tell me you're the same. This is my foundation of just how to handle this. But I can't stay here. Where else can I go? It's close but not fear. I guess I'll do it on my own. Thanks very much. Thank you. I'm going to play another one that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. It hadn't got a name yet. So we'll call it What If. First words are what if, so. What if I don't be all I'm meant to be? The shadows hanging over me. Don't wanna let you down. What if I can't give you all you need to have? Baby, I don't wanna make you sad, 'cause you're all that I want. I believe in us, maybe you don't. I can see the trust, maybe you don't. But we can get through all that I've ruined, 'cause all this pain is hurting me just the same as you, 'cause all I feel is rain from this cloud over me. Maybe I can wait just for a while, just to see your smile one last time before you go away. Living my life, doing what I think's best, but silence is hard to get when there's noise constantly. And I've been low, but not as low as I feel now. The only way I see is down, and it's all because of me. Try to see in us, maybe you won't. Try to see the trust, maybe you won't. But please won't you try, 'cause baby I'm crying, 'cause all this pain is hurting me just the same as you, 'cause all I feel is rain from this cloud over me. Baby, I can wait just for a while, just to see your smile one last time before you go away. All this pain is hurting me, and it's a shame. I guess I'll learn one day. Thank you. I'll do it. Do you want to do one more? One more? No? Okay. Very much. That's me. Enjoy the rest of the night.
I think we'll do that again. That was Daniel Ferguson. He's one of our master's students at the university. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, can I thank you for joining us here on this very special occasion in this spectacular venue. As a university, we are approaching the most rewarding part of our year, the graduation time. And at each ceremony, we will celebrate the hard work and dedication of our students and recognise their fantastic achievements. An important part of those ceremonies will be awarding of honorary degrees to a range of individuals, and we award these degrees to recognise their outstanding contributions in their own fields and to wider society. But it's just as important, they are awarded to individuals who are inspirational to Ulster students as they begin to shape their own journeys and their own futures. In truth, these honorary graduates have the ability to inspire not just our students, but to inspire us all. And I think no one embodies this more than our guest this evening, Gary Lightbody. Gary is an absolutely fantastic ambassador and role model, both in his talent, his incredible talent, and in how he works to nurture the careers of Northern Irish artists and bands. I had the privilege and honour today of spending just a very small amount of time with Gary, and I can attest that he is an exceptionally generous, kind and open person, and he is relentless in his commitment to music and the creative industries. And it was for those reasons and more that he was awarded an honorary degree by Ulster University in 2012. I am delighted that this evening we have the opportunity to get to know Gary a little better. Thank you, Gary, for being so generous with your time and for being here tonight. We were delighted with the interest for this evening. Indeed, I believe the demand was so high that we sold out all the tickets within 2 hours of them being made available. So I think it's a wonderful testimony, but also a wonderful recognition of your talent, Gary. So thank you very much again. I'll finish by just saying thank you to St. Anne's Cathedral for accommodating us, to my colleagues in the Development and Alumni Relations Office for organising this event, and I'll take no more time of your time. I think it's time to get underway. Please welcome our host for the evening, Ulster University's Professor Paul Moore. Paul.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's the first time I've ever played to a sold-out crowd. Whatever about our guest. It's customary on these occasions to say that our guest tonight needs no introduction, and then you proceed to give them an introduction. But given that our guest tonight has written a song which has had 185 million views on YouTube, and given that he's just coming from a triumphant concert in Moord Park, I think we can say simply, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gary Lightbody.
Hello.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How was Moord Park for you?
Extraordinary, really extraordinary. Moord Park 2 for us was kind of the benchmark it was the best gig we've ever done, best crowd we ever played to, and we never thought we'd have another one like it. But Moord Park 3 was as good for me. It really was. It was extraordinary.
I was a bit surprised it kind of degenerated into a country wedding and you were taking singers up from the crowd, you know? Especially singers that are not as good as you.
It was a special guest that was secret to everybody, including all of our crew, and we had to keep him a secret because we weren't sure that he was going to make it. And 10 minutes before he came on stage, he arrived, so it was a surprise to everybody.
Moord Park obviously is central to Bangor, probably central to many people's lives who grew up in that area. For those of us who grew up in East Belfast, on the Newtonards Road, Bangor was a kind of exotic place. In two ways. One, it was sort of transient because nobody seemed to live in it. Everybody came and went. And then, to be honest with you, it was a bit fur coat and no knickers. You know, it was kind of...
So that's how I would describe myself.
How was it for you growing up?
For me, growing up, it was kind of a sleepy town, you know. When I was old enough to go down to the seafront, to Bangor seafront, we would fish. Me and my friends would fish off the pier and things like that. You know, it was it was a great place to grow up in, you know. I didn't know that every Friday and Saturday night when I was a kid, Bangor turned into an absolute carnage where the streets would just be people fighting on them. That wasn't the Bangor I knew. I grew up in. It was Bangor for me was very felt like a safe place in a country that at that time I didn't know wasn't a safe place to be. Bangor was a kind of a it had a kind of a protective shield around it for me. You know, I got to have it's something that a lot of kids in Northern Ireland didn't get to have, and I'm very privileged to have had a childhood, you know, that was untouched by violence, you know, for the most part. And then as you get older, you realize what's going on in the country. But as a kid, Bangor was a very calm, peaceful wee place.
And when you get into those teenage years, were you happy as a teenager in Bangor?
No, I always felt like I was in the wrong place. I think a lot of teenagers probably feel like that, though. But I always felt like I was meant to be somewhere else. I didn't feel like I was connected to anything that was going on around me. I didn't understand Northern Ireland when I was a teenager. It didn't compute in my brain. I grew up in a house that my grandmother was an extraordinary influence in our lives, and she was from Derry, and we'd spend a lot of time up in Derry with her, and she was what's that? Yo! Sorry, didn't realize the Derry ones were in. Get it out of your system. You were drinking this early as well?
Okay, Derry Wans, that's your lot, okay?
We'll come to the Q&A part a little bit.
No, we won't. I mean, I'm interested in the fact that you feel, on the one hand, Bangor seemed to be one of those places that was kind of isolated from the Troubles. And maybe that's why you didn't understand it as much. You weren't being confronted with it kind of straight on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It wasn't until I went to, it was a kind of an abrupt lesson. Once I went to school in Belfast, I went to Campbell, and driving up there every day, you'd on the bus or in my mate's dad's car, he would always listen to Krista Berg. So every morning, we'd be getting Krista Berg on the stereo, and I know every Krista Berg album back to front. And then this sort of mad juxtaposition with like the armored cars with the soldiers hanging out the back with the guns pointed at you, and then you sort of just secondary school in general, the kind of chaos, especially in all boys school where it's just Lord of the Flies every day, and that kind of sort of was a real eye opener for me. It sort of it didn't make me more drawn to Northern Ireland at the time. It pushed me away further.
And was music, or you performing music, was that a big thing in your life then?
No, my music was a secret. Only I really knew about, and we're very close friends. One of them was just sitting on the front row there, Davy Matchett. I wouldn't sing in front of anybody. Every time I would sing, then we had a garage underneath the house. It was right underneath the kitchen. And any time I turned my amp up just a little bit too loud, as in 2, my mum would bang on the kitchen floor with a broom handle, and I'd hear, "Turn that bloody thing down!" So that was kind of my only...
Encouraging?
My only audience. My only audience was somebody that was telling me to turn that bloody thing down. So it wasn't, as you say, not particularly encouraging. But so it wasn't until the end of school, there was like a school musical kind of review thing that they did. They sort of revived in the last year of my years at Campbell, and I sang REM, Find the River, at that, and I sang it like down at my feet, and to my amazement, that was the very first applause I ever got in my life, and it's a feeling I wanted to replicate.
Well, I was going to say there's a kind of contradiction between being in the basement and hiding and playing this music, but wanting to be a rock star. Yeah.
No, I would play I would never think that the songs that I was writing were ever going to get me to onto a stage anywhere. I would play other people's records. I would play AC/DC records, and I would strum my guitar along with it. And that's how I would pretend to be on the stage. I would never think like my songs would get me there, but I would think maybe if I played my AC/DC or Metallica or Iron Maiden, if I played well enough and I went to one of the gigs, maybe one of the guys in the band would bring me up on stage and go, "You're the guitar player we've been missing all this time." That never happened.
I don't want to read too much into this in a sense, but is that what allows you to use literature as an escape and a refuge then, because that's what you eventually go to study at Dundee, English literature? Was that replacing the fact that you couldn't do the music in public?
Somebody from Dundee as well? You as well? You can't be from everywhere. That's 2 places now. I did. Reading was an escape. I for sure. Poetry was an escape. I used to write poetry. We had myself and Davey here had a fantastic English teacher who introduced us to Seamus Heaney.
Probably in the room tonight.
Is he in the room tonight? There he is. Mr. McKee, as we used to call him. His name is Mark McKee, and he's a legend. He needs a
round of applause, this man.
Hello, sir. It is very, very strange. It's the only situation in which I know one of my teachers as an adult, and calling him Mark for the first time was the strangest feeling. But yes, Mr. McKee introduced us to Seamus Heaney, to Van Morrison, to Bob Dylan, to things that he was passionate about, and his passion really showed. He had this energy about him that was like you could never subdue it. You know, even a rowdy class of ours, he was able to get everybody use our energy and his, and we would end up having these really lively discussions about art and music.
That doesn't sound like the English literature curriculum and I studied. Van Morrison and Bob Dylan, Mr. McKee.
He went. That's why I struggled with the exams, to be honest. But.
So you go to university and promptly establish the group rather than studying your English literature?
Very much so. The first day I was there, I met the guy that I started the band with. He was also Northern Irish. The 2 guys, the first guy I met, a guy called Mark McClelland, he went to Sullivan. And then I met another guy, a drummer called Michael Morrison, and we sort of started the band together, and they were all from Northern Ireland, but we had to go to Dundee to start a Northern Irish band. But
yeah, that might have been a good thing, actually, to be away from the place, to have a clear view, looking back and looking forward. Yeah.
I think it, like, not to leap ahead too far, but like being away from home for a bit did start that pang in me, that homesickness, that feeling of being drawn back like a magnet, that started what would become a deep love of this place that I never had when I was a teenager, that I have now. But yet I did have to get away from here, to fully realize that love, because I think I had wanderlust, and it's something a lot of teenagers have. But I was able to kind of live mine to the fullest possible extent of wanderlust. I've been able to travel the world, which is sort of an extraordinary thing.
And how often did that band perform? How often were you touring with that band while you should have been doing your degree?
I had to bribe an awful lot of professors and people like that with thank yous on like 7-inch singles and stuff. We toured a lot. We toured the UK a lot. We played to an awful lot of empty rooms in the UK, which, they say it builds character, but it also tears character down as well. Mm-hmm. We played some shows to one person and one man and his dog, as we used to joke about, but that was it.
And then why keep going if that's the case?
Because we're absolute morons. We I didn't ever want to do anything other than it. Even bad gigs, even gigs with nobody in it. There was always something in it that made me go, "Oh my goodness, what a moment that was!" You know, sometimes you'd actually hear a song that we're playing for the first time properly. You go, "Oh, that really clicked this time. Wasn't that a great gig?" And people are going, "Yeah, but no one was here." And you're like, "Yeah, but that song really worked for the first time tonight," and that's what keeps you going. It's like these little moments where, if you're aware enough to realize those little moments when you're in them, then you don't really need a mass audience. You just need that self-belief.
And is that period allowing you to hone your songwriting craft as well?
Yeah, because until you play it in front of, well, I mean, maybe not one person, but if, say the room's got 20 or 40 people in it, and a song gets a reaction, gets a really big reaction, you realize for the first time that this is like, this song works, you know? Because you can play it to your mates, and they might go, "That's great," or they might go, "That's crap." But if it's a guy that always says that's crap, or if it's a guy that always says that's great, then you've no barometer, you know? So playing it to strangers is really the only way to test anything out.
I mean, we'll talk in a little while more about your support of the industry now, but at that period, do you have a manager? Are you aware of the industry? Is it beginning to become a job?
Well, we got signed to a record. I started in Dundee in 1994. We got signed to a record label in January 95. So the band started in September 1994. We got signed to a London record label. And I just thought, well, it's January 1995 now. By February 1995, I'm going to be a global superstar, of course. That's the way you think back then.
Is it truly the way you think?
That's truly the way I thought. I thought, well, this is it now. We've got a record company. A guy from London phoned me up on the telephone. And it wasn't just any guy from London. It was the guy that you're all imagining as the record company guy. That's the guy. "All right, Gary, I'm going to make you a star." It was like literally that conversation. And it just, like, it blew my tiny mind. And at that, soon after that, we got Johnny Quinn, who has been the drummer ever since, started playing drums, and he'd been managing bands in Belfast. He was in about 4 or 5 bands in Belfast, the New Brontes and the Disraeli Gears and lots of different bands. And so he knew a lot more about the industry than me or Mark did. And when I told him about Jeepster, he immediately was like, "Yeah, that sounds like nonsense. That sounds like the guy's just like phoning random people in his phone book in his house in London." So we went down to London and realized that, you know, they had an office, so that was a start. And they actually assigned a band called Bell and Sebastian. He literally just got a demo tape of 4 Bell and Sebastian songs, 4 songs that would end up on their second album, their first EP. And we listened to that tape. We were staying in his front room. We were all sleeping on the floor in his front room. It was not a big record label. And he had a cassette player, and he played this tape. And we listened to those 4 Bell and Sebastian songs, I don't know, all night, like over and over and over again. They were just, that band were and are everything to me. And one of them's in as well. You know, they turned into the big success on Jeepster Records is the name of the record label, and they turned into their big success, and we turned into their biggest failure. We actually cost them, for a small band selling not very many records, we cost them £250,000, which is an extraordinary amount of money for a small record label, for any record label really. And that's after 2 albums they let us go, but and rightly so.
But the constant belief that you're going to make the big hit record and go global, and it constantly doesn't happen, that has to be constantly debilitating.
Yeah, we you know, because from 1994 when we started to 2004, we didn't have any success at all. We didn't have any hits. We hardly sold any records. We released our album, third album, Final Straw, which would go on to sell quite a lot of records, but we released it in August of 2003. And by December 2003, it had only sold the same amount as the first two records, which is about 10,000 copies. And we were about to be dropped by the record label again. Jo Wiley was Radio 1 at that time, and she played on the album version of Run is 6 minutes long. It's not a single. It's not a song you're going to hear on the radio. It's 6 minutes long. But she played all 6 minutes of it on Radio 1, and apparently the response to it was just extraordinary. And the record company cut a version of it, 4 minutes, and the album was re-released in January 2004, and it went into the top 5, and Run went into the top 5, and everything just changed. In December 2003, we played a gig in High Wycombe in a bar that is a strip club during the day, where they unscrew the stripper pole, and then you set up on the stage, and we played it to 15 people, 7 of which were in the support band. That's how good things were going. And the following March, when we did our next gig in London, we played the Shepherd's Bush Empire to 3,000 people, and it was just everything had just changed within like a heartbeat.
I know the answer you're probably going to give me is you can't, but how do you cope with that? How does that impact on you?
Alcohol, I think, was the way I cope with it. But yeah, because we didn't stop going then from January 2004 to 2012. We were either on tour or we were in the studio. And I think we were all highly dysfunctional by then. I'm skipping ahead, of course, but I think even very early on in the Final Straw tour, from January, things just kept getting added and added. We ended up on that tour for 18 months, and we made Eyes Open, and the Eyes Open tour went for 2 years. And you know, the tour after that for 100 Million Suns went for 18 months. It's just constantly on the road. It's amazing, by the way. It was absolutely amazing. It was the dream of every single, this young man here, I wish you every success, and I hope you have it. I hope you get it. You've got beautiful songs and an amazing voice. But it is the dream that everyone dreams. But it comes with serious mental problems.
Yes, but that adds to the mental problem because you're feeling guilty about not enjoying it, that you've been given this thing you wanted and now you're feeling guilty.
100%, yeah. No, I was tortured with guilt because I thought, well, how can I be sad and have this played to thousands of people? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. So I'd never talk to anybody about it, but I would always just berate myself, constantly. And there was plenty of amazing times, amazing moments, and we had so much laugh. The great thing about the guys and all the Snow Patrol guys is that we make each other laugh constantly. We are basically a bunch of laughing idiots all day, and it's a great bunch of people to be around. So it's a lot of fun. It's just in the silence of a hotel room it gets a little strange.
Well, I was just about to ask you that. I mean, when you've played to 100,000 people, when it finishes, either you go berserk or you go back to a hotel room where there's nothing, and the down of that must be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unusual feeling because you still kind of hear the ringing in your ears, but you feel kind of you feel I don't know, you feel very strange, abandoned or something. It's I don't know. There should be a kind of a there's definitely a better way of dealing with it all than alcohol and drugs, but those seem to be the only ways available, Now I know a different path, and after a gig now I feel fantastic, and I feel this lightness in me, and I can sit in the silence, or I can sit with everyone else and have a great time. Whereas then I didn't understand it. It didn't compute.
The other thing which is a contradiction for you is that you've actually got two musical identities, because you've got the Snow Patrol piece and the very public piece, and then you've got these often quite edgy avant-garde pieces going on, the DJing, the other bands that you're involved with, and some quite avant-garde things. It's as though you're running on two planes.
I mean, I was introduced to dance music when I was 19 by Tom Simpson, who joined the band and was with us for about 17 years. And he's an extraordinary DJ. That was his whole life, electronic music. And he introduced it to me. I introduced indie music to him, and he introduced dance music to me. And all that comes with it, you know, not just dance, electronic music, but soul music and R&B and hip hop. And so that music means an awful lot to me, and I listen. It's a great passion of mine. So the DJing and the sort of trying to make kind of electronic music was something that I was always gonna do. I'm not saying I'm particularly good at it, but it was always a lot of fun. I don't DJ anymore because it got a little strange, because people would come and they would request Snow Patrol songs, and we would be playing like dance music. So it would feel like, and also people would come and they wouldn't dance; they would just stand and look at us. And we'd be like playing dance, going, "Yeah, come on!" People would be like, "Nope." So it sort of felt like we were like the anti-dance movement or something.
And what about those side projects, those vast side projects like Reindeer Section and Third Pony and so on?
Tired Pony.
Tired Pony. Are they a threat to Snow Patrol? Do the rest not feel that that kind of shouldn't be happening?
No, I mean, Johnny Quinn was in the Reindeer Section, and Nathan and Johnny McDade have all played in Tired Pony at certain times and stuff like that. It's very inclusive. And it's always just an extension of it. Nathan has a band called Little Matador. Johnny Quinn has a publishing company called Polar. Johnny McDade writes with loads of different people, including Ed Sheeran, Alicia Keys, Jennifer Hudson, Pink. I mean, like so many. He's one of the most in-demand producers in the world. Pablo is the same. He does a lot of production work and a lot of song co-writing with people. So everybody has their own thing that they do outside of the band, and it never interferes with what Snow Patrol are doing. When we come back together to make a Snow Patrol record, it just is, it's what everyone's focused on.
It's interesting that it's all liveness as well, because the way the music industry has gone, the liveness is the only thing you have left. There's not really any sales from selling music anymore, but it's the live piece which Snow Patrol has always been supreme in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't know if we've always been good at it. I'm not saying that we're good at it, but it's been something that's evolved. I think we've got a lot better live, and I think we're as good live now as we've ever been. And it's really, really exciting to play with these guys at the moment. I think those 7 years away, 7 years was too long, you know. Maybe 3 would have been good, but I didn't have the songs. But you know, it definitely made us all realize that life is so much better with this band than without it, you know.
I mean, it's interesting, once you make it as well, people immediately want to knock you down. I mean, when I was doing the research for this, and I will be honest and say I only found one article which was critical.
Really?
But it was
you weren't looking that hard then?
Well, I was actually. And it was from The Guardian in 2007, and the article was called, "Why Does Everybody Hate Snow Patrol?" And what the guy said was, it was because A, you'd been successful, which makes sense, but also because you'd sold out.
We'd sold out?
Yeah.
I think he probably means that we were an indie band that then sort of had success. You know, you're not really allowed to go from being an indie band to being a sort of major record label band. You know, and that sort of signing, we got dropped from an indie label. As far as we were concerned, that was us. You know, we were in the doghouse. You know, we will go with whoever wants to have us. Do you know what I mean? If you're a record company that has enough money to make an album with us, then we were up for signing. Nobody would take us. 2001 when we got dropped. We went to every record label in the UK, every single one, in Ireland, and nobody would take us. And a gentleman who is on the Mount Rushmore of Snow Patrol right now is a guy called Jim Chancellor, who had just started at Polydor Records at a little imprint, which was called Black Lion at the time, but then they changed the name to Fiction in honor of the great Fiction records that The Cure were on. He came up he got involved with Polydor, and he came up to see us play. We were in Glasgow, to our rehearsal room, and we played him a few songs, and he said nothing. And then he took us to dinner, which we were very appreciative of at the time. We didn't have nothing. And after dinner, I just couldn't take it anymore. He still had said nothing. I was just like, okay, Jimmy, do you want to sign us or what? And he said, I can't say the word, certainly not in this environment, that he said, but I'll just say bleep instead of the word. He said, I knew I was going to sign you on my way up here. I just wanted to make sure you weren't a bunch of bleeps. And I think I kissed him on the mouth after that. And it changed our lives forever because he believed in us. It took a little bit of time because, as I said already, when we released our first album on Polydor, which was called Final Straw, it took 6 months before it to kind of kick in. But they did have faith in us, you know. I think there was definitely people higher up than Jim that were going, why the hell have you signed these guys? They've made another flop. And Jim was desperate to try and keep them to keep faith with us, and they did.
You've mentioned trying to cope with that success, and the number of different places that I read this interesting reference using prison as a metaphor, that rock and roll was a prison. Is that too strong?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, that the whole rock and roll lifestyle and being stuck in the center, the hub of that rock and roll, is actually a prison for you. It holds you in. It kind of oppresses you. It frames your whole livelihood.
I think that it can do, but I think it was the way that I'd leaned into it. You know, the sort of the cliche. Every single cliche in the book, I leaned into the sort of the drinking and the drugs and the breaking stuff. That was more of a prison than anything. The drink, I think, was my worst enemy. And because now we're still playing, you know, a lot. We're touring a lot. We've been touring since April. We're going to be touring up until December, April last year. I mean, and I feel fantastic, you know. So it's certainly not like that anymore. I know another way to live it, but I was living it the wrong way. And you know, some people can live it that way and also perform and also have a great time and like not have the great lows. Whereas I just can't. I don't have that personality. My lows are all consuming.
How bad did it get? How out of control were you at its worst?
I feel weird talking about this in a church. But,
it's confessional. It's confessional. It's okay.
It was every day. My hands would shake if I didn't drink by a certain time in the day. Nobody believes me because I was in LA at the time, but I got really fat. I got like this really weird. My neck was the same size as my face. It was very strange. I was just really bloated. So I never really wanted to go outside. I would go out after dark to the pub, and I would sit in the pub, and then I would come home and I would drink alone. I would sit in the pub alone and I would drink alone. No, hardly anybody drinks in LA, so you're all drinking alone if you're drinking. You know, there was other things involved in it too. Again, I feel weird talking about it in a church, but you know, I was taking too many drugs as well.
And is that problem feeding your feelings of lowness and depression, or is it the depression that's making you turn to those things?
I had depression since I was a teenager, for sure. I think, and I'd never blame. I certainly never blame an entire country, but Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland that I saw had an effect on me. and it was in Northern Ireland. I think I saw mostly on the news rather than, as you pointed out already, it wasn't part of my daily life. Seeing quite a lot of the horrors that were going on face to face, but I saw it on the news. I didn't understand the country that I was living in, and I think that had an impact. And it stuck with me. But there was other factors too. I think I just had a propensity for negativity towards myself. I had a lot of self-loathing. I hated myself for years and years and years, well into my late 30s.
What does that feel like? How does it manifest itself when you get up in the morning and you've got that self-loathing? Is it how you look? Is it how you speak?
I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, and if I looked at myself in the mirror, I would probably say something mean to myself out loud. But I don't do that anymore. I don't feel like that way anymore, because I've learned new ways of being, new ways of living. But it was a long, long time. And drink fueled for sure, but I can't just blame alcohol, because it's a deep set part of me that was at fault.
We have in the university here a mind your mood campaign, because we're aware of those kinds of pressures that young people are trying to deal with on a daily basis. It seems to be a more difficult problem in Northern Ireland, particularly for men. Is that a generalisation? Is that a naive statement to make? It just seems to be that in Northern Ireland, men can't reach out somehow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a sensitive person, always had been, in a lot of negative ways as well. Very quick to cry, very quick to huff, in my younger days, and even I, as a sensitive person, couldn't speak a word about it till I was 40. Until I quit drinking, but it happened to be also 40 at the time. So I can completely understand and empathize with people that find it very, very difficult to talk about. It is really, really hard to talk about, because our whole lives from a very, very young, when we're around other people, generally the mood is, if you skin your knee, get up, get on with it. If you're feeling sad, come on, get on with it, get outside, keep calm, carry on. All these slogans that people bandy around that are very, very toxic. And keep calm, carry on works when you're at wartime, like it was a wartime slogan in the Second World War. Yes, you don't want people sitting around feeling sad, because you've literally got the wolf at your door. But in times like these, when, I'm not saying there's not wars anymore, but at times like these, when things are a lot more insidious, when things creep up on you in a way that can be very, very significant, it is not just enough to keep calm and carry on. There are moments when you need to do that, but there are also moments that need to be more reflective, and you need to think more inwardly, and you like to share what is inside. And it's very, very, very hard for people to flick that switch. It wasn't until I went to therapy and started talking about it that I was even able to talk about it with my friends, because most of them didn't know what I was going through. And to be honest with you, it started a conversation amongst all my friends. We're able now to talk about, not all my friends, but certainly the people in the band and my close friends. We're able to talk about all of our issues now together, and it's a beautiful thing to hear somebody share something that they've been terrified about.
I've only ever known one other person who's had the kind of success that you had, and she's told me this interesting thing once, that once you've had the success, most of your other worries disappear. You've no money worries, you've no kind of success worries, you've made it. So all you do is you worry about yourself.
Yeah, it is funny, because when we started the band, in the first 10 years, all I thought was, I just want a hit. Everything will be different if we have a hit. Everything will be different. My life will change. Nothing to worry about. And then you have a hit, you have another hit, you have another hit, and you still feel miserable. And it even makes me guilty saying these things out loud. So if anyone's thinking, what the hell do you have to be worried about? I'm thinking that too. So don't worry. I know the irony of it all as well. But I think it's important that this album, the latest album that we made, I just laid everything out as honestly as possible, and I made a promise to myself that I would talk honestly about everything in my life from that point onwards. So if I feel ever like I'm oversharing, I think it's a whole life lived sharing nothing. All of that's coming out now, and I'm afraid you guys are in the firing line right now, but here we are.
There was a moment for you. There was a specific incident which made you say, "I've got to stop." That period, that vile illness that you had in 2016.
Yeah.
The shock of that, kind of.
Yeah, it's funny. The thing that I was most annoyed about at the time was I'd booked a flight. I was in LA working on a soundtrack, but I'd taken time off from it to go to France to see Northern Ireland play in the Euros, and I'd booked a trip for me, Davey, and a couple of other mates, and we got the hotels, we got the tickets for the games, we got travel all sorted, and a week before I was due to go, I wasn't feeling very well, and I went to the doctor. And I'm not going to go into details of it, but he said, basically the upshot was, yeah, you're not going anywhere. You have to deal with this. And I was just really annoyed at the time. I was trying everything I could. I went to another doctor as well for a second opinion because I thought maybe he'll say I can fly to France, but he went, you got to deal with this now. And
it was life-threatening.
Untreated, yeah, it could have been, but not with treatment. No.
And the treatment you opted for, of course, was acupuncture.
I did a whole bunch of different things, but yeah. You see, I don't know how people feel about acupuncture in this country, but it saved my skin, literally my skin. I don't have eczema anymore. So many times, and an acupuncturist in LA is the most extraordinary person, and has saved my life on a number of occasions, and was the person that helped me stop drinking. So probably saved a long, slow death as well, because the way I was drinking was Olympic levels. And the song "Heal Me," which is on the new record, Wildness, is about her. But yeah, she saved me. It wasn't just acupuncture; it was other things too. But she had an extraordinary effect, and I recovered reasonably quickly. And the staying off the booze for that time when I was told to be sober for a bit, it just took.
I mean, it's interesting. I'm not sure whether it's you that said it or where I heard it, but Alcoholics Anonymous would tell you that if you're 2 years off, you can start to say you're doing okay. And this month is 2 years off.
3.
3?
Today. Thank you.
I genuinely did not know that. I knew it was June, but I didn't know it was today. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And the coming home has helped with that as well. The being back in this place that you couldn't wait to get away from.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've had a place in Bangor for 10 years, and even if I've spent a fair amount of time in LA, I've always been back and forward, and now I'm permanently in Bangor. My mum and dad live next door, and my sister lives the other next door. So the family are all together.
And sadly, I don't share any of your skills or any of your talents, but one thing we do share is a parent who is trying to negotiate their way through dementia. And you were saying your father was able to come to Ward Park on Saturday, and that beautiful song that you have on the new album about him. Have you renewed your relationship with him in a different way because of this period?
Yeah. Me and my dad were always at odds through my whole life. Our political views were different. Our views on pretty much everything were different. And my mum, as she used to say, was up to high dough. about us fighting at the dinner table all the time about anything that set us off. You know, he was John McCain, I was Obama. You know, whatever it is. You know, it's like we'd always kind of argue. And when I heard that he was ill, it changed everything. Our dynamic now is there's a real sweetness to it. You know, I don't. I have a relationship with my dad now that I never did, but I just wish that.
I'm going to really go off message now.
I'd like to finish that sentence. So I'm not going to cry, I promise. But I just wish that I'd done it earlier, but that I didn't take that.
You may make me cry with you about my mother, so we can perhaps weep together. But I'm going to go completely off message now and say no if this doesn't work for you. Would you perform soon for us?
Sure. So.
Soon you'll not remember anything, but then someday neither will I. Tomorrow, though, is nothing to fear, because, Father, it's always today. Life won't flash before your eyes. Instead will fall away, then melt like snow. The secret storms of your wild youth, now just gentle breezes warm and faint. Soon you'll not remember anything, but then someday neither will I. Tomorrow, though, is nothing to fear, because, Father, it's always today. And I will ride on your coattails again, like I always did as a little boy. And we are standing on the home shores now, my whole hand hanging onto your thumb. There's a place in the palace of you, but we can't always be standing like that. And we can't hide in there just as we were then. You're just my father and I am just your son. Your son. Your son.
Thank you. Truly, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a kind of generalization about your songwriting that it's always about love. I think it's always about politics.
How do you think?
Well, the politics of relationships, the politics of negotiating the kind of spaces you're in, because you've got these writing projects as well, which tries to support the industry, and the odd film and TV appearance in Game of Thrones, of course.
Yes, it was pivotal to the plot.
Some of you may not know that.
I was in it for 10 seconds. I was riding a horse and singing a very filthy song.
And recently, the very open political statement supporting the Lara McKee March and singing at that and so on. Has that come through with having a clearer view of things?
Yeah, I think I've had a clear view on it since I was very young. I go back to my grandmother. She was Rebecca Ray from Derry. She was the kind of guiding light, driving force in our family. Her best friend. We're from a Protestant family, but her best friend, Margaret Monaghan, was a Catholic at a time in Derry when that didn't happen very often. And she would have the Catholic priest in for a cup of tea. She'd have the Church of Ireland reverend in for a cup of tea. She'd have people from both sides of any area or community in Derry in for a wee cuppa. Everybody called in her house. And when she passed away, the church, probably about the size of this place, was so full there was people outside of it, and she wasn't a political figure. She wasn't a known celebrity cultural figure. She was just somebody that embraced everybody, and I'd always taken that to be the way life should be led. You know, she used to say everybody has a story. Everybody should be taken as you find them. You should, it doesn't matter where anybody's from, what race, what religion, what sexuality. She was a very, very open-minded person. And that kind of so from a very young age, that's the way I used to think. And when you watched the news in Northern Ireland, certainly when I was growing up, it didn't feel like that was happening. And I think that's what made me extraordinarily sad, you know. I think now the overwhelming feeling in Northern Ireland is, for one, that we want to maintain the peace that we have, that we want to have a connection with each other, is that we want people to have equality in marriage, equality in education, equality in life. So that is so encouraging, you know. If only we could, you know, like, first of all, have a government that actually went to work. You know, it would be a great start, you know, because I think the will of the people is that we live in peace, and that we have that lasting peace for our kids. And somebody's choking on something there. So, are you okay? Yes, we're fine. Good.
I mean, are you aware, because of your status and the role model you are for people, are you aware of being careful about the intervention you make, or do you just feel, I have to do this?
I mean, no, I don't know. I don't know if it has any impact at all. It doesn't matter. This is I've said. I think I've said nothing for so long on these things that I just feel I can't speak. I used to think that it's important that I stayed kind of out of it, you know, that I didn't want our band to be political. I wanted our band to be a place where everybody could come, everybody would feel welcome, they would come to our gigs, wherever they're from, whatever they're feeling, and they wouldn't feel like they needed to bring the outside world with them. You know, be a place where they could always feel safe to just have some fun. And I don't speak politically at our gigs, and I never will. But I feel like in my daily life now, I just feel like I can't be quiet anymore. You know, especially when we're kind of being, you know, we're in a situation now where it's, you know, it could be very dangerous for the people of this country. You know, and it's, you know, it seems to be a time where we need as much light as possible.
But in your own quiet way, with Davy here, Davy Matchett, you have been trying to do something about changing this society. You established OEA for young musicians and to help that along, and the music industry along, and you've got the Third Bar. And the creative industries are a kind of space where if a young person has imagination and they're given the right tools, they can change their lives in a sense. So that in itself is a huge contribution to this society that we're trying to change.
I think you know, I think the OES Centre has had a great impact in that it's a place where people can go and make music. No one's telling them how. There's just a place where people can go and do it. No one's standing over their shoulder. That's not the point of the place. It's not to tell anybody how to do anything. It's quite the opposite. It's just to give them a space in which to do it in. And you know, and I'm not saying it has a direct correlation to the rude health of the Northern Irish music industry at the moment, but there is an extraordinary amount of bands from this country. Ward Park 3 had 11 Northern Irish bands on the bill, out of 11 bands on the bill. The night before in Bangor, the Friday night, we put ourselves, me and Davy, and the Open House Festival in Bangor put on 8 shows with 16 artists, all from Northern Ireland. So that's 27 Northern Irish artists in 2 days in Bangor. And there could have been way more than that. You know, we could have done a week of gigs with the amount of bands in Northern Ireland. It's an extraordinary time. When we were growing up, there wasn't that many bands from Northern Ireland, and they all had to leave Northern Ireland to kind of make it, in inverted commas, because there wasn't a cottage industry, there wasn't a music industry here. Now there is. Now there's record labels, now there's management companies, now there's loads of places to play, there's loads of places to rehearse, there's loads of places to record, there's amazing producers, there's amazing managers, there's amazing people in an industry in Northern Ireland, and there isn't that brain drain or heart drain or whatever way you want to put it that has to go to Glasgow or go to London or go to America. We have it all here.
And that's true of the games industry, and it's true of the animation industry. And do you think, I mean, you mentioned Heaney earlier, do you think because of those industries we might be in what Heaney called the sea change, being able to see hope and history beyond the grave? Is that too optimistic?
No, I'm very optimistic. I really am. I think the most extraordinary thing, I think, is that when I was growing up, I used, especially going up to Belfast on a night out, you'd get asked that question a lot. Are you Rangers, are you Celtic, or are you Protestant or Catholic, or where are you from? Are you from Belfast, or whatever, what part of Belfast are you from, east or west? You know, you get asked that question. I haven't heard that question being asked in a long time. Maybe it does get asked some places, but it's in the music industry. I'm sure there's bands that have got together. I'm absolutely certain of it, that don't even know what religion they are. You know, don't even know what religion each member is. That just couldn't care less. And I think that is not to not care less about religion. We're in a church, and I know plenty of people with faith that are extraordinary people, and when you use that faith to connect with people, to connect with people on a human and a spiritual level, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But you know, the less that it's used negatively, the less that it's used to push people away from you, and the more that it's used to pull people towards you, the better. And I think music does that naturally. It's a great magnet, you know.
You've made a really passionate exposition for peace and peace around us as a place. Are you at peace?
Yes, I am, for the most part. Davey will tell you different if you sit down and talk to him sometimes. And you know, there's certainly days when I don't feel at peace, but contextually, the person that I was to the person that I am now, it's vastly different. It's almost too, not that it's a completely different personality. It's just that I feel a sense of calmness now that I never had access to. I never really understood. I would always be vibrating in some way. Like I'd always be this kind of person. And I still, I still see it. My mom's going through a lot with my dad at the moment, and in the family, and she has that same thing. And I wish I could give her what I have now. I wish I could give it to her, like say, just give that calmness, because I totally understand it. I totally empathize with it because that's the way I live my life too, and I don't have that vibration anymore.
Well, Professor Foley's going to come in a minute and thank you properly for this evening, and I'm going to ask you then if you'd do another song for us after that. But in the meantime, the person now that is at peace and it is calm has been very generous with its time with us, and I hope that peace remains for you, and I can do nothing but thank you for your openness and thank you for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Lightbody.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Raffaella Folli, but most importantly, I am proudly, tonight in particular, the Provost of the Belfast and Georgetown campuses. So it is my privilege to bring this event to a close, although there is a surprise from the program I had, so apparently it's not the real end, because there's one more song after. What an evening this has been in the magic surrounding of this beautiful cathedral, which we pride to call a neighbor. We've heard a story of humanity, of passion, of familiarity, a rock star, but also a son, a boy from Bangor. Let me start by expressing my thank you to the Development and Alumni Relation Office and team, and in particular to Roshin and the corporate event team for a truly wonderful event. You could think it's easy done if you have someone like Gary to roll out, someone like Paul to bring it out, but it's not like that. An event like this isn't simple, so well done to all of you, and well done on you, Daniel, for having the courage to open this incredible night for us. My gratitude and congratulations to Paul Moore, a master at interviewing, at connecting, and allowing the inner chords to sing. Thank you, Paul, for bringing us another inspired conversation. How many times we must have thought, surely can't get any better. Most importantly, thank you, Gary, for giving us an evening that we absolutely won't forget. Your voice, your beautiful songs, I believe, and these are my thoughts, capture a sense of your own generation. But more generally, they are in tune with the zeitgeist of Northern Ireland today, a totem of a society growing up, with a tone of universality that resonates with different intersecting generations. I know that in my own small world, snow patrols is one of the very, very few things my 11-year-old and I can agree and settle when we're in long car journeys to the cottage. You are also one of our graduates, an honorary graduates of the university, and we are rightly proud of you and immensely thankful for the inspirational evening you have gifted this university family and its friends. It means the world to us to count you as one of us, and we hope to see you very, very soon again. I dare to say our purpose in some way is common. We are connected in that you are, without doubt, an inspiration to the generations we strive to give a better future through education and vision. I would like now to ask you all, after the song, to join Gary for some light refreshment provided by our fabulous training restaurant, the Academy. And as a final point, I will mention again Mind Your Mood. You've heard about this fabulous initiative that is student-led, importantly, and that puts mental health and well-being at the center of a lot of our strives to connect. We've done many things in the last few months. Some people have run the marathon, some people have abseiled from the Belfast campus, and yoga and cycling, tennis just last week. I know many of you have already donated generously when you were booking the ticket, but there's buckets around, so if you haven't had a chance, please consider making a donation again tonight. So, can I now ask everyone to put your hands together again one last time, or one more time, for Gary, Snow Patrol, but tonight also our very own Ulster University graduate, Dr. Gary Lightbody.
Thank you very much. I'm going to play something that you won't know yet, but I think it's appropriate, and it's a song I don't get to play that often. It wasn't on any album. We've never recorded it, and it's a song about here. And I've tried to play it in other places other than here, but people don't get it.
I remember trips to Belfast, on that train that hugs the coast. The fields turn quickly into golf course. The golf course just as fast a field. It was a callow boast, I'll grant you, to know it all when we knew none. Those days we walked the streets of Belfast, like our kingdom come had come. I think of home, I often do. You gotta know I love you now. In this light, how could I not? I think of us just silly kids. I bet we thought we'd never age, and if we did, we'd never dare say. And I remember trips to Derry, on the old cars, freezing seats. And I know Fountain Street in winter, my grandma's laugh, the greatest noise. It's sure been harder since she left us, and none of us have been the same. But the light she left is endless, and I still see her every day. Of home, I often do. You gotta know I love you now. In this light, how could I not? I think of us just silly kids. I bet we thought we'd never age, and if we did, we'd never dare say. I remember trips through Ireland, one caravan, two dogs, the sky. My father yelling points of interest, us snotty kids just rolled our eyes. The punched out teeth of Irish history. Mistakes were made, let's leave it there. But there's one thing we can all agree on. There's beauty north, south, east, and west. There's beauty